games. Don't bring black people and don't come.
The racist rant that has everyone talking far beyond the NBA. So what should happen to LA Clippers owner Donald Sterling? Should the NBA take action? Should the players? And then, did Bill de Blasio have a role in the controversial group that took down Christine Quinn in last year's mayoral election? The feds are reportedly investigating. RFL asked de Blasio straight out last year. You'll hear his answer again tonight. And smart gun technology prompts the same stupid reaction we've seen time and time again when gun laws are up for debate. Why do threats, intimidation, and bullying cloud the debate on such an important subject? Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman. Richard French has the night off. Thanks so much for joining us on this Monday evening, April 28th. A racist rant, apparently from an NBA team owner, caught on tape and sparking a firestorm. The question now is, what will happen to Clippers owner Donald Sterling? The NBA is holding a news conference Tuesday to make an announcement about the investigation surrounding the racially charged comments. Sterling's alleged tirade was secretly recorded by his former mistress as he condemned her for posting pictures of herself with Magic Johnson on Instagram.
It bothers me a lot that you want to broadcast that you're associating with black people. Don't come to my games. Don't bring black people and don't come.
Do you know that you have a whole team that's black that plays for you?
Do I know? I support them and give them food and clothes and cars and houses. There's white Jews and black Jews. Do you understand?
And are the black Jews less than the white Jews?
100%, 50, 100%.
And is that right?
We don't evaluate what's right and wrong. We live in a culture. We have to live within that culture.
Clippers players immediately reacted to the comments after they were leaked by TMZ and Deadspin. In a show of unity, the team walked onto the court with their warm-up shirts inside out and threw them on the court before their game against the Warriors. People everywhere are reacting, including advertisers. So far, CarMax, State Farm Insurance, Kia, Virgin America, Aqua Hydrate, and Red Bull have all pulled their sponsorships. President Obama was among the first to react to the harsh words.
When ignorant folks want to advertise their ignorance, you don't really have to do anything, you just let them talk.
There are broad powers in place under the NBA's constitution and bylaws that include a range of sanctions, and all of those will be considered depending on the findings of our investigation.
Racism, injustice of any kind, it always should be front and center, and we should never run from it, I can tell you that.
He shouldn't own a team anymore, and he should stand up and say, I don't want to own a team anymore, especially when you have African Americans renting his apartments, coming to the games, and playing for him.
There's no room for that in our game. We've found a way to make this the greatest game in the world, and for comments like that, it taints our game, and we can't have that.
There's also a bizarre irony in all of this. Donald Sterling is one of the NAACP's largest donors. He's received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the organization and was very close to getting a second award until the group withdrew it and said it would give him his donation back.
The words used were very Jim Crowish. It goes back to a segregation system and a time that nobody in America is proud of. And I think when you say things like that, you have to pay a price for those kind of things. You have to demonstrate, if it's possible, that that's not who you are. So it was devastating. It's off the scale.
The NAACP also released a statement saying, if true, these are very hurtful remarks, and Mr. Sterling, whose team, talents, and fan base is majority-minority, should offer an apology to Californians. At the conclusion of the investigation into the alleged comments, if true, we seek further redress from Mr. Sterling. Sterling is also accused of having several racist run-ins in the past. In 1983, a coaching candidate who was interviewing with Sterling says he used the N-word during their meetings. In 2006, the Department of Justice also filed housing discrimination charges against him following allegations he refused to rent to African Americans and Latinos. And in 2009, former Clippers general manager Elgin Baylor filed a wrongful termination lawsuit against Sterling, claiming he had a, quote, plantation mentality. I want to bring in our panel tonight. We're joined tonight by Sports Illustrated contributing editor Kostya Kennedy. Alongside him, Chris Shays, former Connecticut congressman and distinguished fellow in public service at the University of New Haven. Welcome back. Jeannie Zaino is here tonight, professor of political science at Iona College and professor of campaign management at NYU. And Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. And Kostya, I'm going to come back to you in just one second. We are, the rest of us, casual sports fans at best. this goes far beyond just a sports issue, and I'm wondering just your immediate reactions to everything that we've heard.
The biggest hearings we had in Washington were about baseball and other sports. So many cameras, the entire country focused on whether people were using steroids. This is a disaster, and the thing that I think is the most painful, it is total affirmation that racism is still alive and well in this country. When someone so prominent can think that way and say that.
Yeah, and I also think, you know, there's been a lot of stories in the last few weeks about race, from the rancher to the decision out of the Supreme Court, and, you know, a lot of discussion having our first African-American president. Are we in a post-racial society? And I think, you know, the congressman is right. We clearly are not, and it permeates every aspect of our lives. And so, you know, it's something that, you're absolutely right, goes far beyond the sports world.
I almost don't know what to say tonight. I've been trying to think about this all day long. I'm like, do you take the diplomatic line? Do you tell the truth? Which way do you handle this, Dominic? Well, I think I can say this much. If you ask any person of color throughout this country, with the election of this president, do we live in a post-racial society? They will tell you, hell no. There are some that will tell you things are almost worse now than before this president took office. I mean, he has a First Amendment right, the owner of the Clippers, to what he had to say. Fair-minded people have a First Amendment right not to support his products, his housing, or his teams.
Kostya, let's get into this from a sports perspective, because clearly Donald Sterling has something of a history with this. I've even seen reactions from former players saying, yeah, everybody kind of knew what was going on. Is that who he is? Is that the sense that you've gotten?
Well, he certainly has a history of discrimination, and that is known. But I think what we saw was a man's true colors. I mean, you really saw how deeply he held these beliefs. It's not a case of him just, you know, behaving badly or doing something that was ill-advised. He was speaking from the heart about these really caveman kind of beliefs. And I don't think that there's anybody on the team who was aware of just how deep it ran with Donald Sterling. He's been a poor owner for many reasons aside from that. But when you get to this, I mean, what player, African-American, white, or whatever, who would play for this man? I mean, if you know that he feels that, who would want to do that? So I think that we're now seeing a real ratcheting up of who he is in awareness.
Had there been, to your knowledge, hints of this from him in the past? I mean, obviously we went through the allegations and the Elgin Baylor comments.
Right. Well, Baylor, who said he ran it like a plantation. And, you know, it sometimes gets a little complicated. It can, because when Sterling hired Elgin Baylor, I think he was one of only 2 African Americans in that position in the NBA. So in some ways that was progressive. That was 20-some years ago now. He also, Sterling didn't pay people very well, so Elgin Baylor was well underpaid, but so was everybody of every color. And I think that, so, and he got the NAACP awards, right? And he pledged to do work in certain inner city areas and all of that, which I guess left some gray area. Well, that gray area is completely gone. There is no gray area anymore. We know who he is, and in some ways that's the biggest punishment he will have. Is we know
it's so curious that he would want to be in a sport that involves so many minorities, both those fans that come and the players. So it is beyond bizarre.
It is, and you know, it's not even, for me, I don't even think it's offensive to African Americans. Of course it is, but it's offensive to everybody, to all of us. I mean, how does one tolerate that?
It's funny because we look at sports and it seems to be one of the more progressive fronts in our society. Jackie Robinson broke the color line in the 50s, and sports has generally been a leader in recent decades, and yet it pops up from time. I mean, Al Campanis in the 80s, who was the Dodgers general manager, who went on Nightline and said, speaking from the heart, something that was inherently racist, that in his mind, African Americans didn't have the necessary skills to be in management or ownership or something like that. Marge Schott in baseball. I mean, this really bubbles over from time to time and surprising a lot of people, or at least surprises me, in the sports world.
Well, you're talking about executives, and they're not necessarily sports people. I mean, they are, but they're not in the locker room. I think that in the locker room, now there's still cliques, which sometimes divide along racial lines when you're in the locker room. But pretty much, for most people, if you can play, if you're on the team, you're on the team. They don't care what you look like or anything like that. We're talking about people, and they're removed from all of this. They're removed from the camaraderie. These are, just like Bundy, who you brought up, Jeannie, he from a different era, and he sees things in this backward way. He made his money in real estate, and he owns the Clippers. He's a sports guy in that he owns the Clippers, and he sits courtside with his girlfriend and his wife, but he's not in the guts of sports.
But are we at all complicit in this? I mean, the NAACP Lifetime Awards issue is very troubling to me, because this is a guy who was known. Okay, he had lost the lawsuit regarding the housing. This was a guy with a history. And you know what that says? If you have the money, you get those honors all the time at colleges and universities. If you have the money, you get those. And I think that this is something that's very troubling.
You know what, Professor? I didn't want to call out the NAACP.
I mean, and I don't either, because
to be honest with you, I was trying to just let it go away quietly, but I'm sitting here and I'm stewing about it. Think about what Andrew just said in the copy. He received one Lifetime Award and was about to receive another one. And so the NAACP, right, in Los Angeles said, no, take back your donation. So in other words, he was paying for the award.
Exactly.
So it came down to dollars and cents. And the NAACP was willing to look the other way, despite you had an African-American general manager in court papers say he runs the team like a plantation, and the NAACP said, here's an award. You're cutting this big check? Show me the money.
It's ill-advised, but you have to think about how many people are going to be able to cut a check the size of that Donald Sterling could, and how could that help people who the NAACP wants to help. So it's a calculated risk. Again, at this point, there's no risk to be taken. There's no way to take that money. But you understand people think, well, I could use this money to help people who need it.
Well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to focus on what happens now that we've analyzed what he said and the significance of it. What does the league do, and what do players do? We also want to reach out to you at home. Head to Facebook and Twitter and sound off on tonight's question. What do you think should happen to Clippers owner Donald Sterling following his racist rant? And up next, in addition to that look ahead, we're going to have a look at some of the other racist remarks that have helped bring down other big names in professional sports. That is next.